Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today is June 10th, 2013. And what I want to bring up today is this. Back some time ago, I made a video, a message to SF members, all of those who had been in the different special forces in the military. And they eventually, a lot of them, many of them, went over to private contractors like Kraft, formerly Blackwater, Academy, those types of things. And they may have felt justified, some of them, not all of them, in laying aside their oath to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States, which means, of course, to protect the citizens. The tool that allows the citizens to exercise their God-given rights without being violated by the government. Well, today I would like to address all of those who are in the government in various capacities, in the executive branch, in the Department of Justice, FBI, CIA, NSA, DHS, IRS, all of those. And also the people that are in Congress, both the Senate and the House of Representatives, those that help them to accomplish their purposes, their legitimate purposes, we would hope. And basically anyone in government who is aware of wrongdoing by our officials, be they elected, appointed, or merely employed. You see, we have reached a crossroads, and we can no longer look back on President Bush's speech that he gave at the beginning of the so-called War on Terror after the attack on the World Trade Centers and the Pentagon, wherein he said that our enemies, that he identified as those in the Mideast, hate us because of our freedoms, which, if you look back on now, the greatest hater of our freedoms is that institution, that government that he represented, and that Obama represents today. That government has been the people's greatest enemy, because they are the ones that have hated our freedoms, and all of their subsequent actions show that. From the Patriot Act that came into existence barely weeks after the attacks on 9/11/2001, which really proves that they had been in the wings for some time, to the NDAA, to the Expatriation Act, all of these things, all of the executive orders, everything that's happened, the real enemies of the United States are those who are in positions of power and influence in the United States. Not people living 10,000 miles away in caves and in barren fields trying to eke out a living from day to day. Those are not our enemies. Not in so much as we've actually made them our enemies by our actions. And that by deliberation, by calculation, by deceit, and by the use of financial resources of international bankers and true enemies, historically, of freedom and liberty. So I won't belabor that point. I think you get my message. And now to go back to you who are working in those positions of government. My channel here is not extremely large. I don't have a lot of people that listen. But you folks that know people in positions of government, if you would be so kind as to forward this to them. Maybe even senators, congressmen, the Supreme Court. Help me to get this to everyone possible. tweet it out, whatever it is you do. And I'm a baby boomer, so I don't quite get into all of that, but you all who do it, please do. You are welcome to. Because it is time for the new hero to stand up. And there are legions of you, and I don't mean that in a negative term as it's often applied. There are hundreds, if not thousands of you waiting in the wings to do the right thing, but you're either afraid or you think you need the right time. Believe me, now is the time for every good man and woman to come to the aid of this republic. I'm not even going to say our country, but the republic that we're supposed to be. We have heroes that have come forward in our past, but I want to talk about two today. Bradley Manning and Edward Snowden, which most of you have heard about by now. The government constantly talks about the criminality of leaks and the people that leak the information, and the leaks and the leakers and the leakers of the leakers and all of these things. They go back to the Espionage Act of 1917 to apply all this, which is really improper under the circumstances, because the real criminals are hiding criminal activity and protecting it by using this Espionage Act of 1918 and the military and state secrets, so-called privilege, which I've talked about before. In other words, criminality occurs, violations of the Constitution occur, and they hide behind the pretense of national security when really what they're talking about is hiding their crimes, misdemeanors, and treason. We can no longer allow this to go unchecked. And this hidden army, these people that can break the back of this developing tyranny, which is really here already, they haven't actually implemented the part where they're going to drop the hammer. They've done it incrementally, but they're getting ready to, and we need to do this now. I know many of you have taken oaths where you've said that, you will not violate your agreement, that you will not disclose information that is unauthorized to be disclosed. But I have to ask you, what is the greater crime? To violate the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the very foundations that our government was founded upon, the very foundations of liberty, freedom, freedom of the press, freedom from unlawful searches and seizures. What is the greater crime? We hear James Clapper of the NSA and his minions saying that these are violations, these leaks are grievous violations and crimes. The people that are guilty always point the fingers at someone else, and the government acts like a juvenile delinquent in its actions of blaming others when it is the problem. The United States used to be the beacon of liberty to the world. Not the best, not perfect, but it was the beacon of liberty. Now it has become the sower of oppression, the instigator of aggression, and the black boot of tyranny worldwide. And it's coming home now to roost in the United States, as I've talked about ad infinitum, with the way that they're attacking the freedom and liberty of Americans, and soon their lives. Bradley Manning, Edward Snowden, they are heroes deserving the highest honors that this nation can bestow on our heroes, because they took their concern for liberty and freedom above this substitute of a government that pretends to give us freedom but takes it from us every day, that proves to be our true enemy. They say that Bradley Manning and Edward Snowden have given aid and comfort to our enemies. Yet the government has declared those enemies that they are trying to use as a reason for this action against these two men and others. They have declared those enemies their allies in wars of aggression overseas. They have used them. And what is the greatest enemy? The greatest enemy is any attempt to remove the Bill of Rights from Americans. That is the greatest crime, for whatever reason. The government says, oh, there are terrorists, and then don't even tell you what the definitions of the government for terrorists are. Everything is in secret. And as one man has put it, secrecy destroys privacy. And privacy, if it's not maintained, is the loss of liberty. I hope I said that well enough. I'm not following notes today. So what I'm asking is that the true heroes of the Republic need to stand up, and if they see anything, understand that this government is not a government of, by, and for the people any longer. That there is, as Rush Limbaugh said, a coup d'etat. And there have been shots fired already. Innocents maimed and killed by this rogue, out of control, unlawful, criminal, unconstitutional government, at least by the people that are running it, who have committed these crimes. They are the enemy. And in order not to give them aid and comfort, and to allow them to dismantle the last vestiges that will give us hope to recover from this grievous wound, you must, you people that are in positions in the government, law enforcement, communications, all of those things, must come forward as the people in Benghazi are about to, and explain the criminality that has occurred. Forget about your oath, again, that I was talking about, against unauthorized disclosure, because the greater crime is the violation of the Constitution, which is the supreme law of the land. That is the supreme law of the land. And if it isn't, then we have been lied to, and we need to take it back. Again, it's not the most perfect that the world needs, but it's the most perfect the world has seen to this point in time. That government governs best which governs least. And that government that is most suspect is the one that is the most secret, and brings charges of crimes against citizens for trying to demand that the government abide by its own laws. And by its laws, I mean the Constitution of the United States. So this is a call to that unseen army that exists out there, seeing all of these things happen. My first message to the SF members was an example of that. There are greater things that we need to stand for rather than just the bottle with the label on it. We need to stand for what the contents of that bottle used to be. Freedom, liberty, the Constitution of the United States. No possible explanation or excuse can be given to violate those most sacred principles that secure our freedom and liberty. No pretense of pretending to protect a government that is itself rogue and criminal and an aggressor and a murderer. What would it profit us to gain the whole world as a nation and lose the soul that brought us into being, which is liberty and freedom. As I said a long time ago, we can't pretend to give something that we do not have, that we do not possess ourselves, and we do not possess the freedoms. All you have to do is look at what's been happening over the last month. I could go over everything that's happened over the last 10 years or 20 years. But if you don't have a memory that works that well, and most Americans don't, just look at the last month. Or maybe take it from the Boston bombing, which now, if you look at that at all, you will know that there is something grievously wrong with the government scenario, the government explanation of what happened there. The only part you have to even look at is what they said about the video and the pictures of the brothers, that the FBI didn't know who they were when they were working with them for 5 years. There's a war going on in the government, and I don't know who's going to win. What I want to happen is I want the people to win. I want the people to be secure in their rights, in their liberties, in their freedoms. No, those in the Middle East are not upset with us because of our freedoms. That was a statement made to us in the way that I explained in the Bilderberg NWO Luciferian Curse Deception video. That statement was made to us in veiled terms, saying that they were going to take the people that run this country and the world, really, were going to take our freedoms from us. That they would do it. So, again, Bradley Manning, Edward Snowden are true American heroes that put principle before their own well-being, that sacrificed all that they could have had, family, a home, money to spend on things that they need, a good name. They sacrificed all of that for a principle that is greater than any of us. Because without that principle, none of us will have it. Liberty and freedom. So that hidden army out there that can point this criminal conduct by officials, by employees in our government, you need to come forward now. This needs to be a massive wave of revelation, of exposure. And then the Congress needs to take action. They can no longer be a party, an accomplice to these crimes. If they are, then they are guilty as well, and it's time to clean house. How that will happen? Well, there are men of principle that are about ready to stand because there is no other way to go. Let's do this peaceably, peacefully. I use those two words deliberately. Come forward, do the right thing, and let's do all we can to set this republic back on the proper course. Because if we do not, and we only have weeks, months at the most, it will be forever in our memory.